This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on platform for transparent taxation, honoring the honest. The participants are Govind Lal, Principal Commissioner of Income Tax, Chartered Accountant Sunil Bakshi, and AIR Correspondent Sonu Sood.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi today launched the Transparent Taxation Honoring the Honest platform, where he talked about Faceless e-assessment, Faceless appeal, and Taxpayers charter. Tax reforms have been a key focus area of the government. Indirect taxes, besides reducing tax rates for existing companies from 30 to 22%, for new manufacturing companies to 15%, abolishing the dividend distribution tax, and simplifying and reducing personal income tax, several steps have been carried out to make the tax regime more collaborative and taxpayer-friendly. We'll start the discussion with Principal Commissioner Income Tax, Mr. Govind Lal. Mr. Lal, Faceless e-assessment scheme of Income Tax Department is being presented as a game changer in the manner in which scrutiny assessment was conducted for a long time in our country. What is the genesis, the rationale of this scheme, and how is it going to be proved as a game changer?
Faceless e-assessment scheme of 2019 is indeed a game changer, bringing out a paradigm shift in conduct of scrutiny assessment by Income Tax Department. It is the first instance anywhere in the world where there will be complete anonymity of the officers conducting the scrutiny assessments to the taxpayers. In the Gyan Sangam, the annual conference of the Chief Commissioners of Income Tax, Service Tax, Custom and Excise on 1st of September 2017, our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, unveiled a vision to introduce a system of faceless e-assessment in which taxpayers do not need to come to the tax office, and thus taxpayers and tax officers do not come face to face. Honorable Finance Minister Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman had announced launching of such a scheme in the budget speech on 5th of July 2019. E-assessment scheme was notified on 12th of September 2019, and it is now being run on pilot basis for scrutiny assessment of assessment year 2018-19. The scheme and related notifications set up a faceless all-jurisdiction structure for team-based assessment through electronic means only. Use of artificial intelligence, computerized rule-based automatic procedures for selection of cases and allocation to assessment units, review units, verification units, and risk management strategy and video telephony will comprehensively eliminate human interference and will radically change the way scrutiny assessment is being done so far. Faceless assessment will be game changer.
Mr. Lal, why did the need arise to have a disruptive change in assessment process? How is it going to meet the expectations for which the scheme is conceptualized?
The main objective of the scheme is ease of compliance for taxpayers and to reduce the compliance cost and anxiety of the taxpayers. The main key concepts are TEA. T for transparency, E for efficiency, and A for accountability. Scrutiny assessments have been conducted in electronic media since last few years, but Faceless e-assessment scheme 2019 has these unique features. First, state-of-the-art digital technology for risk management by way of automated examination tool, artificial intelligence, and machine learning to eliminate discretion. Second is concept of team-based assessment with dynamic jurisdiction. The cases of any area or jurisdictions can be allocated to units located across the country at 8 stations and now been expanded all over the country, barring its own jurisdiction. Third, there is a concept of different units like assessment units, verification units, review unit, and technical unit with functional specialization. Assessment unit is to frame questionnaire and assessment. Verification unit is to conduct inquiry and verification. Review unit would examine the draft assessment order to look into the correctness of the order. And technical unit is to provide requisite technical assistance like valuation, forensic data analysis, etc. And the most important is that there would be complete anonymity of the units to the assessee and also anonymity among the units themselves. Units cannot contact the assessee other than the prescribed mode of electronic communication. So there will be no scope of undue influence at all.
So there will be a lot of objectivity, transparency. You have spelled out the benefits for the taxpayers. What will be the specific benefits for the Income Tax Department?
To eliminate any bias in selection. Cases are selected by computer-assisted scrutiny selection using the tangible information collected from different sources and analysis of return using big data and artificial intelligence. Ensuring transparency and principle of natural justice, taxpayers are to be given so-called notice along with draft assessment orders. The assessee shall have the option to seek personal hearing only through video telephony. Further, all draft assessment orders will be subjected to risk management and would be reviewed by the review unit to ensure fair and correct order. All these unique features and provisions are inbuilt in the scheme to ensure complete transparency, efficiency, and accountability, and thus making the scheme game changer.
Mr. Lal, Prime Minister said that there was a fear of income tax notices among taxpayers which led to low compliance. So do you think faceless e-assessment will take away this fear of receiving income tax notices and long face-to-face interaction with assessment officers, which is often perceived as harassment, and increase voluntary tax compliance?
After this e-assessment scheme, there will be not much fear because the assessee will not be knowing who will be giving you the notices that has been coming from. And these are the specific benefits as per this scheme. Ease of compliance for the taxpayers. There will be no discretion and undue influence. So there will be no fear from the part of the taxpayers. There will be reduced litigations also, and there will be functional specialization would lead to tax certainty and would help in better tax planning by the taxpayers. Risk-focused approach inquiries only in certain cases of tax evasion only, and people at large will not face unwarranted inconvenience, and effective quick disposal of cases will enhance efficiency also. All these things will limit the fear. In fact, there will be no need to fear.
Mr. Lal, it is said that both types of scrutiny proceedings, faceless and non-faceless, are going on for the pending assessment cycle of assessment year 2018-19. How would one distinguish them?
The notice under Faceless e-assessment scheme is issued under the heading of National e-assessment center and is signed digitally by the officer of National e-assessment center. That's enough to indicate that the case is selected under Faceless scrutiny.
And what is the current status of the implementation of Faceless e-assessment?
This creation of e-assessment scheme was done by notification on 12th of September 2019. A total number of 58,322 cases were initially selected under the scheme. As on 10th of August 2020, a total number of 9,690 draft assessment orders have been already prepared, out of which 9,093 assessment orders have been passed despite challenges posed by the lockdown due to the pandemic COVID.
And apart from COVID, of course, that is an unusual situation. What are the challenges generally being faced in the way of implementation of e-assessment scheme?
There are some initial reservations from the side of taxpayers and representatives. Main concern and apprehension of the taxpayers are that they would not be able to physically explain and make the assessing officers understand explanation and documents. Successful implementation of pilot project will pave the way for the expansion of the scheme to the other centers. The main challenge is to ensure the participation of the taxpayers in the proceedings. In a substantial number of cases, the taxpayers have not replied to the notices despite reminders. In this scheme, the taxpayers cannot be contacted on phone or through letter for compliance of notices other than through electronic means. This is the main challenge being faced by the department at the moment.
Mr. Lal, implementing any transformational change is always a challenge. What are your expectations from the taxpayers? What is the message you want to give to the taxpayers at large whose cases are selected for faceless e-assessment?
The department expects that the taxpayers comply to notices in time. Non-compliance or delay in filing of response may lead to incorrect assessment of income. SSC should file proper reply in time. Secondly, the SSC should ascertain pendency of proceedings in its registered e-filing mail. Notices under faceless e-assessment are validly served if it is served in its registered e-filing. Further, the SSC should not make any effort to contact AO otherwise than the way provided in the scheme. Not only it is the responsibility of the government, but also responsibility of the taxpayer to see to it that law is properly complied and the scheme is successfully implemented. The government has taken an earnest step to assert in an era of transparency, efficiency and accountability for scrutiny assessment and revenue collection. As a stakeholder in the nation building, it is responsibility of the citizens to come forward and ensure successful implementation of the scheme and contribution of tax in accordance with law.
Now we'll go over to Mr. Sunil Bakshi, who's a chartered accountant. Mr. Bakshi, how will the faceless e-assessment scheme be beneficial for the taxpayers compared to the earlier scrutiny assessment system, which involves face-to-face interaction with the assessing officer?
I think this faceless assessment is a very good idea because that will more or less completely eradicate the corruption part, number one. Number two, what will happen is that the questions that will be asked by the tax department will be relevant and reasonable and necessary. What was really happening was that a lot of questions were asked which were irrelevant, and a lot of paperwork was being generated and given to the assessing officer. The order which was being passed was very cryptic and not a speaking order. All this, in my view, will be eliminated once the e-assessment program is in full force.
Broadly, we would like to know from you, why would usually a person get such a notice after filing the income tax returns? What all situations could necessitate a scrutiny?
What happens is that at times people use certain methods of showing less profits, which on a proper scrutiny can be noticed so that the department can take action on those people who are using these frivolous methods of reducing their profits to pay less tax.
So what all documentation is required in case you get a faceless e-assessment notice? What all information needs to be shared? There are some standard forms like Form 26AS where you can reveal all the information.
What I understand from the e-assessment process is that they will ask certain relevant questions, and those relevant questions will have to be answered by the assessee. Many times what happens is that there is a debatable issue. It has two interpretations. One which is accepted by the assessee, the other is contested by the department, or vice versa. So all those issues where the benefit has been taken can be really stopped or taken care of in an assessment, a notice issued and a scrutiny.
So this eliminates human interface and prejudice that comes with it, and there is a much more objectivity in the proceedings?
Yes, there's much more objectivity. Now, if the assessing officer does not pass a speaking order, it will become very easy for the assessee to get the order quashed.
Can we hope that income tax evasion will become less rampant and people will honestly start paying taxes after this major tax reform? That fear of getting an income tax notice will go away?
What really will happen is that the number of visits which one has to make, because if you go, the assessing officer is not available, or he tells you that come again tomorrow, all that of to and fro visits will stop.
And what about the documentation identification number system where the TIN number is the only identity of a person, the name is not revealed, and there is complete anonymity? How is this system going to establish transparency?
Because the assessee would not know who his tax officer is. He cannot approach him. And similarly, probably the tax officer will not know whom he is assessing.
What about this pre-filled form that is being talked about and hand-holding of taxpayers? Can you tell us something about this?
If you see the charter today, which has been issued by the Honorable Prime Minister, the tax charter, it also says that everything will be basically streamlined and transparent. So basically, what you've been, like the tax amount, like you mentioned 26AS form, the tax amount that has been deducted is already there in the 26AS. So they can fill it up. And with regard to the other particulars of the assessee, which is already there with the department, it can come pre-filled. So it becomes very easy. The only area which the assessee has to fill up is the profits and the tax and things like that.
So Mr. Bakshi, will you sum up the benefits from the faceless e-assessment scheme for the taxpayers?
The advantages are that it will be cost effective, it will be time saving, it will be more transparent.
Thank you so much for joining Mr. Lal and Mr. Bakshi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on Platform for Transparent Taxation, Honoring the Honest. The participants were Govind Lal, Principal Commissioner of Income Tax, Chartered Accountant Sunil Bakshi, and AIR Correspondent Sonu Sood. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.